Thank you for watching, liking, commenting, sharing, and subscribing right now. Right now I'm sitting directly in front of, at least virtually, well, you know, my monitor, but on my monitor is Kevin-Carmony. I met Kevin a few years ago when he was the CEO of Linspire, which used to be known as Lindows, which you might remember was a Linux distribution that was really geared towards new Linux users. You know, going after a market that I don't know is ever going to get captured. I had those questions and concerns about it way back when. Certainly had promise with where it was going. Kevin is no longer with Linspire. Is now off on his own, running a website that I don't know if we've mentioned before, but datingdna.com. And yeah, see, look, he's grinning now. Did you see how he was like? He didn't want to say anything. But datingdna.com is like uber cool, and I did, when he first mentioned what he was working on, he's got like an iPhone app for the dating stuff, and I said, damn, it almost makes me wish that I wasn't already very happily married, because it's a very cool website. It's a cool web service. Free, too, by the way, datingdna. But that's not the reason why I've got Kevin here on Skype at this time of night. And I don't know how else to explain it other than there's some weird stuff going on with Linspire at this point in time, and Kevin probably knows a little bit more about that than I ever could. I only caught what I know about it through Kevin's blog, kevin-carmony.blogspot.com.
Yep.
All right, so Kevin, fill us in. What's going on here? Something's happening, and it ain't good.
Well, it probably started, I mean, I was the first employee at Linspire. I was there for 6 years. I was the president for the first 4 years, and then I became the CEO for 2 years. And then about 10 months ago, I resigned. And the first 4 years were, relatively challenging for me. I was used to being the CEO and the top dog of a company, and I was working under Michael Robertson, who was the CEO, and I was the president. And so after about 4 years of that, I then decided to move on. But instead, Michael decided he'd move on, so I stayed as the CEO, and the agreement was that Michael wouldn't interfere, that Michael wouldn't do anything, he would just stay out of the way. And for 2 years he did. He moved on another floor of the building, he ran all his other companies. So for those 2 years, the first thing that I did is I came out with FreeSpire, which was the free version of Linspire. We open sourced the client for CNR, we made a free version of CNR, created a partnership with Ubuntu, opened CNR up to other distributions. So I definitely made a lot of changes. But then we, about 10 months ago, without going into a lot of specifics that could one day end up in litigation, we had a very profitable year. My last year that I was there, we had a lot of money in the bank, and Michael and I had some serious disagreements on where to go next. And I was fine with that, but part of the direction that we wanted to change to was to really start focusing heavily on CNR.com and a little bit less on the distribution side. That's why I formed this relationship with Ubuntu. So we had some real disagreements over some layoffs. And he wanted to lay some people off with 2-week severance. I wanted to lay people off that had been there for 5, 6 years, executives, officers, board of director members, with a little more reasonable severance, anywhere from 4 months up to 12 months for people. The guy we gave a 12-month severance package to had an employment agreement that had in there a 2-year severance agreement. So I felt that was more fair. Michael disagreed. Unfortunately, he wasn't the CEO. He was a non-functioning, non-executive chairman who had virtually nothing to do with the company for 2 years. So I went ahead and issued the severance that I thought was fair. Michael was very upset with that. We continued to fight, so then I left and resigned. But the real kicker that, fully has never come out, which I look forward to really sharing all the details once litigation is out of the way. The real kicker was Michael filed with the San Diego Police Report a embezzlement claim against 6 executives of Linspire, saying that we had created a co-conspiracy to embezzle the severance payments. So he did that. He tried to reverse wire transfers. They undid the IRS, because obviously when we let these employees go with severance, We gave them the regular withholdings. Well, Inspire then 1099'd all those employees so that they would have to pay the taxes.
Independent
They
contractors.
refiled everything with the IRS. They denied unemployment benefits to these people. I mean, on and on it went, that for 10 months since these people left, Michael Robertson and Larry Kettler, who was the new CEO, just really made these people's lives hell. And when they filed the police report, that was it for me. I just couldn't take it anymore. That's when I started coming public, and that's when I started mentioning things. Well, then what broke a couple of days ago is, we have 100 shareholders at Linspire. Granted, Michael is the largest shareholder, but he's by no means the only shareholder. And so all of these shareholders a few days ago got a letter in the mail that was 3 paragraphs long. Here's what it looks like. You can see it in my blog. I printed it in my blog, that basically says, oh, by the way, 100 shareholders, we've sold all of the assets of Linspire to Xandros. But we're not going to tell you what we sold it for, how much it's worth, or anything. And if you go to my blog, I actually created a video that really shows how the pieces moved, what Xandros got, what we were left with. So bottom line today, what we're left with is the old Linspire Corporation has 1 employee, Michael Robertson, has 1 board member, Michael Robertson, who is the chairman of the board, the only board member. Linspire used to have an independent outside board of 5 board members. Right before I left, Michael fired the remaining board members, and he was the only board member. He had asked me to transfer funds to him personally that were not authorized, and it just goes on. And one day I look forward to giving all the details. So all the executives were now pretty much gone. I resigned. 10 months later, he then sells the assets and then sends a letter to the 100 shareholders saying that he sold it with no other information than that. So to this day, they haven't had a shareholders meeting since I left, which, again, I complained about that some time ago in my blog. I offered to purchase control of the company 10 months ago when I left at 50 cents a share. So I'd be curious to know what those shares are worth today. The fact that Michael isn't coming out to the shareholders and telling them what they're worth really leads me to believe there's some shenanigans that have taken place. Where did the money go? Where did the assets go? And so that's basically where things are at.
Are you the only shareholder, current shareholder, who has been public about this particular turn of events?
If you look at my post, I'm the only one that certainly has kind of proactively gone out there. Michael's a very litigious guy. Most people don't want to publicly kind of cross swords with him.
Yeah, that's kind of in his history.
Yeah, I mean that's his claim to fame more than anything, is he spends more time in a courtroom than in the boardroom of the office.
Yeah, and just for a history lesson, mp3.com. You guys remember that whole debacle? And even the use of Lindos sounding too close to Windows. That's why they had to change the company name to Linspire. It's not funny, but it's very eerily accurate. So
yeah, and what Michael likes to do, and I'm one of the few people that has ever really spoken out publicly against Michael. He likes to have this persona that he's taken on the big companies, he's taken on Microsoft, he's taken on the record labels. He likes to kind of keep that persona, but at the end of the day, I have 10 years history with Michael now, and I certainly have a different version of what he is like and what he does. Calling 6 super quality employees, dedicated, as honest as the day is long kind of people, I would rehire any one of those people tomorrow. To call them embezzlers and co-conspirators because they got severance payments, that's just beyond the pale. I mean, even for Michael, that was a new low for me. And he's got the EMI lawsuit going on right now in litigation, additional copyright infringement claims against him at MP3 Tunes. A week ago, he did a Michael's Minute showing his minivan and saying, hey, EMI wants to take my minivan away. Well, I noticed he didn't show a picture of his multi-million-dollar beachfront home in Del Mar, California, or his 300-plus acre ranch in San Diego, or his Lexus sedan that he drives. I don't know who drives the minivan. I've never seen him in the minivan. But so that's, he likes to paint a persona that he's this poor picked-on guy from the big bad Microsoft and record labels. But my experience has been Michael's the big guy that really likes to pick on other people. And so, yeah, I mean, it's pretty obvious. For people who follow my blog, I'm not real happy with what's happened since I left. I had a really solid plan when I left. We had a great relationship with Ubuntu. It was critical that Ubuntu incorporated aspects of CNR in their distribution, particular for the commercial software. And as soon as I left, that partnership then completely fell apart for reasons which even here I won't go into, but that certainly really killed some of the last prospects that Linspire had.
I wanted to kind of give perspective. When he's talking about CNR, he's talking about click and run. There was a warehouse, and I guess it's kind of around, no longer around.
Oh, it's still there, cnr.com.
Okay.
It doesn't have a lot of users, but...
Right, but the idea was, it was actually very nice. Being able to click and install just about anything that at least was available in the CNR click and run warehouse. It was actually very well ahead of its time, at least as far as Linux was concerned. And it really needed to be there from just an average or below average user's perspective, certainly. So the idea had a lot of merit, and I see why you went after Ubuntu, because it certainly generated a lion's share of attention with Linux in a way that I haven't seen any other distribution do. No other distribution like Ubuntu, for whatever reason. And I couldn't tell you why, how, when, or where.
Yeah, well, and I think that was the mistake that Linspire made. I mean, I think we did a lot of great things, NView and LSongs and LPhoto and CNR.com. And, every time you use Firefox and it corrects your spelling for you, that was something that we did. I mean, there were a lot of nice things that we did, but the one big mistake we made, and this was, again, Michael Robertson, I think he really upset the development community. The running is root issue. I mean, he was really the only person at Linspire that kind of agreed with that. We took constant hits about that. And, his ego refused to let him ever change that. The second I became CEO, one of the first things I changed was certainly that. So I think because we didn't cater to the developers and to the really Linux community, we didn't even have a free version of the software, which I changed day one when I became, I announced that, I think, about the day I became CEO. We are going to have a free version called FreeSpire. Problem was, it was too little too late. By that time, Ubuntu had really run the gambit, but we still had CNR. And so that's why I met with Mark Shuttleworth several times. And I'll just tell you, Mark's a great guy. I have nothing but respect for Mark Shuttleworth. Very impressive what he's done with Ubuntu. But I knew, hey, we have something you want with some CNR technology, and you have what we want, great distribution base. So when I left 10 months ago, everything was designed to really carry on with that system. But, Linspire and Michael and Larry, they really didn't do anything after I left other than a bunch of mistakes. Upset a lot of people, upset partners, upset people like me. I mean, I remember one of the conversations I had with Michael about the severance is he said, I'm not going to pay severance just so people say nice things about me. Because I explained to Michael, hey, Michael, we want to treat these people fair. They've been here for 5 or 6 years. Let's treat them reasonable. Let's get them to sign waiver forms and do the things a good buttoned-up corporation does. He wanted to give them 2-week severance and said, no, I'm not going to pay anybody just so they'll say nice things about me. Well, okay, he never paid me a dime, and to be very clear about that, I never asked for a dime of severance. I never got a dime of severance. In fact, to this day, Linspire still owes me, I think, 1 day of salary, which I've never bothered to get back from them. So I made nothing in this, and I told Michael in an email, I don't want 1 dime of severance. In a deposition, I said, to this day, I do not want 1 dime from you for any back pay for me, Michael. All I want to see happen is I want an honest accounting to the 100 shareholders. What did you do with those assets? There were millions of dollars in the bank account when I left Linspire 10 months ago. I'm just curious, as are the shareholders, what happened to those assets? Did you destroy, did you burn through them? Did you take them? Did you transfer them to your other companies? Did you dividend them to yourself? Which I had 2 outside legal counsel say that, no, you can't do that. So that's what we want to find out.
Well, the only time I ever really see Michael is when I log in every once in a while to my Gizmo account, which I don't really use on a regular basis. I always wondered what was going on with that. I mean, I didn't realize that, of course, you're not privy to insider information if you're not in the company. But this just seems to be a bit different than, I think I've ever experience something like this from the outside. I mean, certainly the ups and downs of MP3 and Linspire. Now with blogging being what it is, and with you being as transparent as you are, Aren't you worried that that's going to come around and bite you? I mean, if and when it does go to court, I'm assuming it will.
No, because I haven't said one thing that's not true. I mean, truth is the ultimate defense. I could reach over here and grab the police report and show it to you, and it's just ridiculous. The claims that were made in there. He claimed in there that I went to our data center and erased all the backups of the emails that they had in the whole company. I wouldn't even know how to do that.
Yeah, you are. After all, you are a CEO.
Yeah, but I don't certainly know how to go into the data center